Marley was dead, to begin with. There can be no doubt whatever about that. The register of his burial was signed by the undertaker, the clergy. The chief mourner, Scrooge, signed it. Old Marley was dead as a doornail. Mind, I don't know what there is particularly dead about a doornail. I would think a coffin nail to be the deadliest piece of ironmongery in the trade. But the wisdom of our ancestors is in the simile. My own unhallowed hands shall not undo it, or the country's done for. Therefore, you must permit me to repeat emphatically that Marley was dead. This must be distinctly understood, or nothing wonderful can come from the story I'm going to relate. Old Scrooge knew he was dead. Well, of course he did. Scrooge and he were partners for, I don't know how many years. Scrooge was his sole friend and chief mourner at the funeral. Oh, but he was a tight-fisted hand at the grindstone. Scrooge, a squeezing, wrenching, grasping, scraping, clutching, covetous old sinner, hard and sharp as flint, secret and self-contained and solitary as an oyster. The cold within him froze his old features, nipped his pointed nose, made his eyes red, his thin lips blue, and he spoke out shrewdly in his grating voice. External heat and cold had little influence on Scrooge. No warmth could warm, nor wintry weather chill him. No wind that blew was bitterer than he. But what did Scrooge care? It was the very thing he liked, to edge his way along the crowded paths of life, wanting all human company to keep your distance. Sorry. I'm so sorry. I get so carried away when I tell this story. I have no sense of proportion. Please allow me to start again. Yes, thank you. Oh, good heavens, I do this every time. Here we are. A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. Once upon a time. A much better start to a story, don't you think? Once upon a time, of all the good days of the year, on Christmas Eve, oh yes, Scrooge sat busy in his counting house. He was busy counting. The weather outside was frightful, but the fire was so delightful, and since we had no place to go, that's not it. The weather outside was cold, frightful, miserable, biting weather, foggy withal, and dark. The door of Scrooge's office was open, that he might keep his eye upon his clerk, Bob Cratchit, who, in a dismal little cell beyond, a sort of tank, I was in here, copying letters. Now, Mr. Scrooge had a small fire, but my fire looked so very much smaller that it appeared to be only one coal. But I couldn't replenish it, oh no, for Mr. Scrooge kept the coal box in his own office. So surely, as I came in with the coal scuttle, Mr. Cratchit, if you touch one piece of my coal, I shall ask you to seek employment elsewhere. Mr. Scrooge, sir, it is very cold, and my fire's nearly gone out. Warm yourself at the candle, Mr. Cratchit. Mine suits me. So I tried to warm myself at a candle, but not being a man of very strong imagination, I failed. A Merry Christmas, Uncle! God save you! That was the cheerful voice of Scrooge's nephew, Fred, who came in so quickly. This was the first inkling Scrooge had of his approach. A Merry Christmas, Uncle! God save you! Humbug! Christmas a humbug, Uncle? You don't mean that, I'm sure. I do. Merry Christmas. Out upon a Merry Christmas. What is Christmas time to you but a time for paying bills with no money? A time for finding yourself a year older but not an hour richer? If I could work my will, every idiot that goes about with a Merry Christmas on his lips should be boiled in his own pudding and buried with a stake of holly through his heart. Uncle! Nephew! Keep Christmas in your own way, let me keep it in mine. Keep it? But you don't keep it! Let me leave it alone then! Much good it has done you, much good will it ever do you. I've always thought of Christmas time when it's come round as a good time. A kind, forgiving, charitable, pleasant time. It's the only time I know of in the long calendar of the year when men and women seem to open up their shut-up hearts freely and to think of those around them as if they really were fellow passengers to the grave, not a race of creatures bound on other journeys. Therefore, uncle, though it has never put a scrap of gold or silver in my pocket, I believe it has done me good, and will do me good, and I say, God bless it! Hurrah! Why, thank you, Mr. Cratchit. You see there, uncle, someone agrees with me. Let me hear another sound out of you, Cratchit. You'll keep your Christmas by losing your situation. You're quite a powerful speaker, sir. It's a wonder you don't go into Parliament. Don't be angry, uncle. Come. Dine with us tomorrow for Christmas dinner. I'll see you in Hades first. But why? I want nothing from you. I ask nothing of you. Why cannot we be friends? I am sorry with all my heart to find you so unwavering. We have never had any quarrel that I know of. But I have made this visit in homage to Christmas, and I will keep my Christmas humor to the last. So, a Merry Christmas, Uncle. Good afternoon, and a Happy New Year. Good afternoon. And a very Merry Christmas to you, Bob Cratchit. Oh, well, thank you, Mr. Fred, sir. And a Merry Christmas. Thank you, sir. Now, Bob, in letting Scrooge's nephew out, and let another gentleman in. He was a rather pleasant-looking gentleman who stood before Scrooge with his hat off and bowed to him. Scrooge and Marley's, I believe. Have I the pleasure of addressing Mr. Scrooge or Mr. Marley? Mr. Marley has been dead these 7 years. He died 7 years ago on this very night. Oh, dear. Well, we'll scratch him off the list then, won't we? I have no doubt his generosity is well represented by his surviving partner. At this festive season of the year, Mr. Scrooge, it is more than usually desirable that we should make some slight provision for the poor and the destitute who suffer greatly at the present time. Many thousands are want of common comforts. Hundreds of thousands are want of common necessaries, sir. Are there no prisons? Oh, plenty of prisons. And the union workhouses, are they still in operation? Oh, they are still. I wish I could say they were not. The treadmill and poor law, both in full vigour then. Both are very busy, sir, yes. Good. From what you had said at first, I thought something had occurred to stop them in their useful course. I'm very glad to hear it. Under the impression that they scarcely furnish Christian cheer of mind or body to the multitudes, a few of us are endeavouring to raise a fund to buy the poor some meat and drink and means of warmth. We choose this time because it is a time above all others when want is keenly felt and abundance rejoices. What shall we put you down for, sir? Nothing! Oh, you wish to remain anonymous. I wish to be left alone. Since you ask me what I wish, sir, that is my answer. I don't make merry myself at Christmas time. I can't afford to make idle people merry. I hope to support the establishments I have mentioned. They cost enough, God knows. Those who are badly off must go there. Oh, many can't go there, Mr. Scrooge. Many would rather die. If they would rather die, they had better do it and decrease the surplus population. It is not my business. It is enough for a man to tend to his own business and not interfere with other people's. Mine occupies me constantly. Good afternoon, sir. Ooh. Seeing clearly that it was useless to pursue his point. It is useless to pursue my point. The man withdrew. The weather outside became colder still and foggier yet. A small boy stooped down to Scrooge's keyhole to regale him with a Christmas carol, but at the first sound of God rest ye merry gentlemen, let no fear you dismay, Scrooge seized a ruler with such energy of action that the singer fled in terror. Scrooge resumed his labours with an improved opinion of himself and a better temper than was usual. At length, the hour of closing up the counting-house had arrived. With an ill will, Scrooge tacitly admitted the fact to the expectant clerk, who immediately snuffed out his candle and put on his hat. You'll want all day off tomorrow, I suppose. If quite convenient, sir, yes. It is not convenient, and it's not fair if I were to stop your wages for it. You think yourself ill-used, I'll be bound. And yet you don't think me ill-used when I pay a day's wages for no work. It's only once a year, Mr. Scrooge. That's a poor excuse for picking a man's pocket every 25th of December. But I suppose you must have the whole day. You be here all the earlier next morning, Mr. Cratchit. I will, Mr. Scrooge. Thank you, sir. Good night, sir, and a Merry Christmas. Good night, Mr. Scrooge. Merry Christmas. The office was closed in a twinkling, and Bob ran home to Camden Town as fast as he could. Scrooge walked out with a growl. Scrooge took his usual melancholy dinner in his usual melancholy tavern, and having read all the newspapers, beguiled the rest of the evening with his banker's book and went home to bed. He lived in a gloomy suite of rooms in a lowering pile of buildings that had once belonged to his deceased partner, Jacob Marley. Now, Scrooge had not bestowed one thought upon Marley since the mention of his 7 years dead partner that very afternoon. Let anyone explain to me, if they can, what Scrooge saw as he put his key into the lock of the door. The knocker, without it undergoing any intermediate process of change, was not a knocker, but Marley's face! Marley's face! Scrooge! Oh, Jacob! Jacob Marley, is that you, Jacob? Oh, Scrooge looked fixedly at the phenomenon, and it was a knocker again. He could think of no other words to say other than, pull, pull! He put his key in the door, he opened it, and closed it with a bang. The sound echoed through the house like thunder, thunder, thunder. Scrooge was not a man to be frightened by echoes. Oh no, he walked across the hall, slowly too, trimming his candle as he went up the stairs into the darkness. Darkness was cheap, and Scrooge liked it. But before he closed his bedroom door, he walked through every room to see that all was right. No one in the sitting room, no one in the parlor, no one under the bed, no one in the dressing gown that was hanging up in a very suspicious attitude against the wall. Satisfied with this, he closed his bedroom door and locked himself in. Double locked himself in, which was not his usual custom. Thus, secure against surprise, he took off his hat and coat, his scarf, his cravat. He put on his nightcap and his dressing gown. Excuse me. Dressing gown, yes, there we are. And he sat down before the fire to take his gruel. He had a head cold, you know. Delicious gruel. Suddenly, there was a sound, as if someone were dragging a heavy chain across the wine caskets on the merchant cellar below. It came closer still. It came through the door. I know him! Marley's ghost! Marley's ghost! Marley, in his usual waistcoat, and the tassels on his boots, he hovered above Scrooge. How now? Who are you? Ask me who I was. You're very particular for a ghost. All right. Who were you then? In life, I was your partner, Jacob Marley. You don't believe in me? Why do you doubt your senses? Because the littlest thing affects them. A slight disorder of the stomach makes him cheat. You may be an undigested bit of beef, yes, a blot of mustard, a crumb of cheese, a fragment of an underdone potato. There's more of gravy than of grave about you, whatever you are. Man of the worldly mind, do you believe in me or not? Oh, I do. But why do spirits roam the earth? Why do they come to me? It is required of every man that the spirit within him should walk abroad amongst his fellow men, and if that spirit goes not forth in life, it is condemned to do so. Off to death, it is doomed to wander through the world. Oh, woe is me. And witness what it cannot share, but might have shared on earth, and turn to happiness. You are fettered, Jacob. Tell me, why? I wear the chains I forged in life. I made them link by link yard by yard. I girded it on of my own free will, and of my own free will I wore it. Is its pattern strange to you, Ebenezer? Or would you know the long coil you bear yourself? It was as full, and as long, and as heavy as this 7 Christmas Eves ago. You have laboured on it since. It is a ponderous chain, Ebenezer. Oh, Jacob Marley, speak comfort to me, Jacob. I have none to give. I cannot rest. I cannot stay anywhere. Oh, 7 years dead and travelling all the time, eh? The whole time! Incessant torture of remorse. And not to know that no space of regret can make amends for one's life's opportunity misused. Yet such was I. But you were always a good man of business, Jacob. Business? Mankind was my business. The common welfare was my business. Charity, mercy, forgiveness, benevolence were all my business. The dealings of my trade were but a drop of water on the comprehensive ocean of my business. Hear me, Scrooge. My time is nearly gone. I am here tonight to warn you, you have yet a chance and hope of escaping my fate, a chance and hope of my procuring Ebenezer. Oh, thank you, Jacob. You are always a good friend, I thank you. You shall be haunted by 3 spirits. Oh, is that the chance and hope you mentioned, Jacob? It is! I think I'd rather not, thank you very much. Without their visits, you cannot hope to shun the path I tread. Expect the first tonight when the bell tolls 1. Expect the next upon the next night at the same hour. The third upon the next night when the last stroke of 12 has ceased to vibrate. Look to see me no more, Scrooge. But for your own sake, remember what has passed between us. Jacob Marley floated out upon the deep, dark night. Scrooge ran to the door by which the ghost had entered. It was still double locked as he had locked it with his own hands. The bolts were undisturbed. He tried to say humbug, but he stopped at the very first syllable. Overcome with exhaustion from the fatigues of the day, or perhaps the lateness of the hour, or perhaps the dull conversation of the ghost. Much in need of rest, he put his head down and fell asleep upon the instant.